Hey guys, Alex Mathers here. Now, if you're anything like me, you enjoy following the trajectories of people who have reached the upper echelons of success and have done very well for themselves in life and career and have made lots of money and have inspired millions of people and have sold lots of books and are generally very motivating and inspiring for the rest of us. And very often when I look into their backstories and whenever they talk about their histories, you tend to hear a lot about how they really struggled in their early stages, how they had a period of total rock bottom from which they bounced back from, rose like the phoenix from the ashes, and built something incredible, mainly because, and this is from their own mouths, because of their unwillingness to return back to the hell from where they came. They had such a forward drive to move them forward away from that hell behind them in their early days, whether that was poverty in childhood, parents that didn't have any money to support them, deviant behavior at school and avoiding school and struggling at school and dropping out of college and dropping out of school and taking drugs and hitting deep depression, whatever it was, some kind of terrible struggle. You often hear these stories rising to the top. Obviously, you hear about other well-to-do people who were privileged in different ways and had various leg ups, and that's a different story. But I'm talking about the guys who very often talk about all their struggles, and of course they get that audience because they've been talking about how difficult it was for them and how seemingly the transition from absolute hell from where they came to where they are now, it's such a contrast that they tend to attract a lot of support, and I totally understand that, and I follow a lot of these guys, and I'm very, very inspired by a lot of these guys. But it got me thinking about, well, what about the rest of us? What about most of us who go through life, whether we've had moments of despair or depression or whatever? Some of us didn't have these intense moments of pure hell in our youths that we can bounce back from, that drive us forward enough. A lot of us didn't have deviant childhoods where we were taking drugs and having promiscuous sex left, right and centre. I mean, what about us average Joes who lived fairly mediocre lives in middle class families, who didn't experience total hell? You know, we had fairly loving parents and we had friends and we were, conscientious at school. Perhaps we didn't involve ourselves that much at school and we kept a low profile and we weren't particularly naughty and we got decent reports at school. What if we went through school and college with okay reports? This is where I get a little bit, admittedly, envious about those guys who, that's to say, almost envious for those guys that went through utter hell in their early stages of their careers. Because these guys had something very, very motivating to move away from. And it got me thinking about whether it's possible at all to achieve extremely high levels of success if you had a fairly normal, standard, okay childhood. Is that even possible? So I'm talking to you guys, one of my kind, who lived fairly middle class, fairly privileged upbringings, were pretty lucky in many cases, and had food on the table and had a shelter over their heads and had decent family setups for the most part and all that kind of stuff. Is it possible to be motivated to move into to incredible levels of success and to go for the full potential that we know that we're capable of if we didn't have intense levels of suffering growing up? I mean, this is an interesting talking point, but to an extent I am a little bit envious. You could almost argue that it is even harder for those of us who are entangled in this societally programmed average thinking that many of us have in the middle classes, in the sort of standard average Joe way of doing things. Perhaps it's a lot easier to leave that kind of level of low-level comfort, low-level distress, quiet lives of desperation type scenario than moving from total hell, total poverty. Surely it's much more motivating to be the guy who comes from total darkness and total poverty to overcome all the odds and become extremely rich, extremely successful, extremely influential. Surely that is almost, and this is not to complain, this is just to observe, surely that is it's not easier, but it kind of is. It's almost easier to move from hell to total success than it is to move from mediocrity, average, even comfort to total success. I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, but I want to talk to you guys who perhaps standing on the sidelines, looking at these guys achieving incredible things and thinking, well, they deserve it. They came from hell. I had a decent upbringing. I'm lucky. You know, I'm richer than the guy over in Africa. I've got food on the table. I've got Netflix streaming through this amazing internet system. It's almost very, very easy to not have big aims, to not want to move out and expand into our fullest potential when we have all these things already here for us, when we're already in comfort, when we didn't come from hell, when we don't have that much we need to change. And I think for those of you who are in that situation, but also have ambitions like I do, it's very important. I think it's even more important for us to dig even deeper and figure out a way to bring total abundance into our lives and to really explore our full potentials, because I think it's deserving of all of us. I think we need to find a way of acknowledging our incredible miracle as humans who are capable of anything. And we shouldn't just allow those who had a difficult story to be the ones who rise into success. Everyone is capable of doing it, and everyone should be deserving of those incredible rewards that come with successes later in life. And I'm talking big success in whatever way you define it, but big success nonetheless. What I'm saying to you guys is that to you average middle class guys who didn't have intense periods of hell growing up, you may have had some difficult moments like most of us, but this is now the time to sit down and really remind yourself as to why you need to be moving forward. You need to be getting very clear, crystal clear about all your visions and your goals and your dreams. Again, you need to wipe off the tarnished dust that is covering the lens of your future vision. Get really clear about that. Get very excited again, because it is harder, I think, to move out of mediocrity than it is to move out of hell. The driving force out of hell is a lot more provoking, a lot more motivating than it is to get out of the middle class mindset and the middle class pleasant picket fence, whatever it is, background that most of us had. So understand that it is harder for us, I think. It is harder for the average Joe to push out of that sort of medium level. The onus should still be on us to do what we can to really push it, to really get motivated and to motivate ourselves. So it's not about aiming to sit on Oprah's sofa in a few years' time to explain the struggle that you went through. It's about digging even deeper and doing this for yourself, doing this selfishly, knowing that you don't necessarily have an amazing story of transformation. It's even more challenging in that sense. So understand that we have a challenge as well, us normal folk, and use that understanding to motivate you even more. So remind yourself of your future visions, get excited about what you could be achieving, but also understand that because it's even harder for us to get out of mediocrity, to get out of comfort, you have even more of a reason to push harder. You have even more of a reason to get busy every day. You have even more of a reason to write down your goals every day. If someone who's come from hell writes down their goals twice a day, hint, hint, Grant Cardone, you need to be writing your goals down 3 times a day. You need to get even more unreasonable about how you're going to transform and the kinds of things you do, the kinds of actions you take today in order to reach big success. Don't rule out big success from your life if you are an average Joe in a middle class setting. You can have it all. And you need to aim for all. This is the only way really to live. This is what meaning is about for me. It's about pushing into your full potential and doing everything you can to live the most magical life you can. And that starts with you. That starts with you being selfish. That starts with you acknowledging the fact that it's a lot harder. It's going to be more of a challenge to get out of your comfort zone, to get out of what is already comfortable. It's a lot harder in this current environment, where there are no wars, there are no horror stories for most of us from our pasts. The impetus to move out of where we are is less intense. Many of us don't have that sense of total purpose, that total need to be determined and persevere every day when it is required of us. So be the odd one out. Give yourself that self-respect. Give yourself the true self-love of enabling your life to be the best it can be and to not settle. Don't settle. I very often find myself floating back into that settling mindset, that, okay, let's just be happy with what I have. Let's take it easy. Let's just enjoy life. and not experience too much stress, too much challenge. Let's just choose the easy route, the path of least resistance, and of course that's going to lead to mediocrity and depression over time. I know this to be true because it's happened many, many times. So let's avoid that, and let's give ourselves permission to push it, to motivate ourselves to get up to these higher echelons of success as these other guys, who many of whom struggled at intense levels. And I have this slight level of envy. Of course, I'm not envious of someone who struggled in their lives in the way that they have, and I commiserate with them for what they went through. But in a way, there is that added push that is lacking for many of us that we do need, because the world needs us to come alive. The world needs us to expand into our higher levels of being, our higher levels of consciousness. We need to get to higher levels in order to live a fulfilling life today. So let's together, as a group of average Joes, perhaps give ourselves permission to really pursue our dreams and make it very difficult for us to settle and fall back into our old ways, and understand that even if we had an okay upbringing and we didn't suffer extreme stress growing up, we deserve big success and big things in our lives. So if this made sense to you, do subscribe, do write a comment below if you've got any questions about this, or if you want to add further to this conversation. Obviously this is a bit of a half-baked idea. This is an idea that came to my mind today, and I just wanted to get this out there and see what you guys thought. So do subscribe, do like this if you liked it, and I will see you in the next video.